Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today on a Thursday. It is truly great to have you with us. I'm Dave Revson. A ton to get to on this day. Some big news surrounding Caitlin Clark in Iowa City, plus Zach Edey piling up even more awards. All of that coming up. But we start you off where else but with the Frozen Four as we have finally arrived at game day. It's our big story. Michigan is there for the third straight year. They'll look to win their first national title since 1998, starting with a semifinal matchup against Boston College tonight in St. Paul, Minnesota. The winner gets the winner of the other semi between Denver and Boston University. Our big stat is brought to you by Walgreens. Tonight's game will pit the two teams with the most Frozen Four appearances all time. Wolverines are first with 28. BC not far behind with 26. Michigan has 9 all-time national titles, but they have fallen short in each of their last 8 Frozen Four appearances. For more on this one, let's check in with our crew in St. Paul, led by Rick Pizzo.
Game day has arrived in the Twin Cities. The puck set to drop on the 2024 Frozen Four, including a national semifinal showdown between Michigan and Boston College. Welcome back inside the X alongside Paul Caponigri and Fred Pletch, getting you ready for the Wolverines and Eagles. Certainly, I think, Paul, the narrative here is explosive offense against explosive offense. And it's true. There is some high-scoring octane on both sides. But it's about a lot more than that when a spot in the championship game is on the line.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to a Frozen Four by just scoring goals. And I think that's what's elevated Michigan's game the last month and a half or so. And they were, quite frankly, 16th in the pairwise, Fred. And, you know, everyone's like, what do they have to do to get in? What do other teams have to do? Instead, they focused on themselves. They played better defensively, and that elevated their offense. You play good defense, you get the puck back, you start going the other direction. I think that's what's done Michigan well and got them to this point in the season.
Yeah, there's 6 NHL first-round draft picks in this game. Could it be run and gun 8-6? Could.
Sure.
But to your point, Michigan's improvement in February and March has been on the defensive side of the puck. Part of the credit goes to the new assistant coach, Matt Deschamps, who is the D Corps refers to him as a genius on the defensive side of the puck. So that's part of it. And when you look at what they've done, do they want to play 5-on-5? Probably. I mean, they've got a power play that's capable of scoring 3 or 4 goals in a game, but so too does BC, and BC's got the best penalty killing numbers. And discipline has been a problem for Michigan at points in this season, but they've taken care of that lately, and I think it's a number of factors. Players get it. They realize the stakes that they're involved with now. It's been behavior modification. Guys are checking differently. They're not going for the big hit. They're wrapping up along the boards, and, you know, I don't care what the referees say. In the playoffs, in the postseason, the game definitely is called differently. Fewer penalties.
And I know you can debate that one way or the other, but from a player's perspective, you want the referees to swallow the whistle, don't you? In this situation with the national championship on the line, you want the players to kind of decide the game.
Well, yeah, I mean,
to a point.
The referees are under as much scrutiny now. What we've seen, I've talked about it all season, quite frankly. At times I want to apologize to them because it's not an easy job, but you want to get these right. And with the head contact, whatnot, that stuff, it really puts an emphasis on that. If Michigan's to go on a 5-minute power play their way, that's a huge boost to Michigan's line, and vice versa for Boston College. So hopefully it's a clean game. I think both teams have trended. I mean, especially we know Michigan more has trended to being way more disciplined, and I think that is huge. I mean, because if you get a 5-minute major one way or another, these 2 power plays can light you up like Christmas.
You speak about trends, Fred. There's really been one trend for Boston College this year, and it's been winning. They're on a 14-game heater right now. That's the good news. I think if there's one piece of a silver lining that the Wolverines can take from that, no team can stay at that level for an extended period of time when you continue to play top-tier competition like you have to play to get to a Frozen Four, and ultimately the goal is to win it all.
I can guarantee you with 100% certainty this Michigan team is unfazed by the #1 team in the nation. They don't care if they've won 100 14 straight games. This is a Michigan team that went up against Michigan State. Remember, Michigan State had beaten them 4 straight times before the regional. And I don't care who you're playing, at this time of year, all the teams are good. And to expect Michigan State to beat Michigan a 5th consecutive time, that was asking a lot. And now you're asking BC to run the table and win 16 straight games. The common denominator with the Eagles' losses this year, they've lost 1 game a month. Except they didn't lose one in March. And each time the other team, the victorious team, scored 4 goals 4 times, 5 goals once. So Michigan knows they're going to have to score. Are they capable of winning a 2-1 game, 3-2 game? Yeah. But against this BC, this high-powered BC team, they're going to have to score at least 4, I think.
And what's interesting, what I'm looking forward to seeing is when one team throws a big haymaker, can the other answer? Because it seems like both teams are built that way. You saw what Michigan did last week against Michigan State. They're 2-2. Next thing you know, in 12 seconds, they're up 4-2. And Michigan State didn't really have an answer. BC is a team, I think, that can maybe punch back a little more. And I think vice versa. Michigan got down in North Dakota. They're down a defenseman. They're able to get 3 goals in the 3rd period, take the lead. So both teams have seemed to always lately answer when things have not gone their way. So that's another chess match in a Frozen Four. The environment's a little more high profile. Can the teams keep that momentum? Because if it does, then maybe you are seeing a 6-5 game. And as an offensive player, give me that.
I know a lot of people believe the red light operator will be very busy, and the goaltenders as well. And when it comes to this stage, if you want to win a national championship, you usually have to have not just good, usually have to have outstanding goaltending. Jacob Fowler for Boston College, Jake Barczewski for Michigan. Barczewski's been much better later in the year. He's trending in the right direction. It's interesting for Fowler. He's a young guy, but he obviously also has plenty of experience playing in big games.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the Big Ten championship game because you had everything in that game. You had high-scoring offenses, but you had great goaltending, too. I don't think you just you can give up 4 and still play well or play well at the right time. I think that's what's key. Okay, it's 4-4. Goalie hasn't played well but if he makes that big save with 3 minutes left in the 3rd period on a 2-on-1 from Leonard to Smith, you make that save and then you go down the other end. So like the goaltending, it doesn't have to be a 2-to-1 game for it to be great, but you make that big save at the right time can lead you to a victory.
Well, to quote Lou Vero, USA Hockey emeritus and 1984 Olympic team coach, at this time of year, they really should rename the sport goaltending. and it's so true.
So true.
You talk about the big save. So you've got the grizzled vet, 25-year-old Jacob Barczewski.
DJ
Barzo spins tunes for the boys in his spare time. But he's unflappable. And he also knows his role. He knew when he was giving up a soft goal a game back in February. And he'll come out and say, I have to do my job. I know the players in front of me are going to do their job. Yep. So at the other end of the ice, you've got big 6'2", Jacob Fowler, 3rd-round draft pick of the Montreal Canadiens. Kind of the new breed, the barrier to entry.
Very similar to Trey Augustine, who they've seen many times.
Yeah, you got to be 6'2", 6'3". Yeah. And did Michigan beat Trey Augustine? How did they beat him a lot of times? Make him move east-west. And with all the skill on Michigan, the top 3 lines can do that. You'll see it time and time again. And I saw at Yost Ice Arena, fans are yelling, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. Well, Michigan's not taking a shot from 40 feet without traffic or somebody in front of the goalie. It's not happening. They're going to transfer the puck, make the goalie earn his saves, and sometimes they can't get it. And when Michigan makes the goalies move east-west, sometimes that goalie's in a little trouble.
So many wonderful storylines heading into Thursday's national semifinal showdown between Michigan and Boston College. We're just getting started, though. Much more analysis from Fred and Paul still to come. Plus, Frankie Nazar, TJ Hughes joining us up here for a chat as they look ahead to the showdown with the Eagles. All that and more still to come. But first, send it back to Chicago.
A special day in Iowa City yesterday as the Hawkeyes celebrated their 2nd straight national runner-up appearance with an estimated 8,000 fans at Carver Hawkeye Arena, many of whom arrived more than 2 hours in advance. The biggest moment came when Iowa Athletic Director Beth Getz announced that Caitlin Clark's number 22 will be retired.
Yeah, it's super incredible. Something I'm very thankful for, and obviously I've had teammates over the course of my 4 years here. And there's been a lot of really good 22s to come before me and play for this program, whether it's Captain Doyle or Sam Logic. So that number holds a lot of weight, far beyond my name. And I guess I'm just really grateful, and it'll be a special day when I have this picture.
While we're on the topic of legendary players, Purdue's Zach Edey won the Wooden Award yesterday, meaning he has now swept the major National Player of the Year awards for the second straight time. First to do that since Bill Walton in 1972 and 73. Edey, of course, led Purdue to a spot in its first national title game in 55 years. He leaves as the school's third all-time leading, or I should say as the Big Ten's third all-time leading scorer and second leading rebounder, the only player in the top three in both of those categories in conference history.
Well, for right now, the story is all about Nebraska's pitcher, Brett Sears. They've gone swinging, they've gone looking, and it has been 3 up, 3 down so many times today, and the Buckeyes, they just cannot figure out a way to put a bat on the ball. Complete game from Brett Sears, and he shuts out the Buckeyes here in Game 1 of the series.
With that performance, Nebraska's Brett Sears was named the Big Ten Pitcher of the Week. He's also been named the National Pitcher of the Week. This after that 2-hit complete game shutout in the Huskers' 3-0 win over Ohio State Friday. It was the fewest hits allowed in a complete game by a Nebraska pitcher in 5 years. He's now 6-0 on the year. Big Ten Network baseball analyst Michael Huff is with us now, and Sears has really emerged, Mike. I mean, he was a reliever a year ago. Now, not only is he a starter, but he's 6-0. Yeah. Give us a little insight into how he has turned into one of the Big Ten's most dominant pitchers.
Well, again, all of us expert analysts saw this coming because 3 years ago had over a 12 ERA, 2 years ago almost a 6, last year a 5.27. And for him now to step in and all of a sudden have a 1.14 ERA as a starter, not just coming out of the bullpen, all of us saw this coming. Not. But he has done the things that with this Nebraska ball club, you were hoping this big, strong 6'4.5" guy was going to just gobble up a bunch of innings. Had always good stuff, but never could quite put it together. And as you know, in all the sports, it doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, baseball. Sometimes for guys, it clicks a little bit different. Sometimes a coach saying something makes it happen. And for him this year, he has found a groove and has been able to stay in that groove consistently for the first part of this season.
Interesting. It certainly worked well for Nebraska. I mean, a guy who was junior college, Western Illinois.
Yep.
Reliever, and then all of a sudden he's their ace and the ace of a team that is atop the Big Ten. They are 5-1 in conference play. And this is a little bit of a jumping off point for us as we look at some of the top pitchers in the Big Ten, run through a few others. Iowa's Brody Brecht leads the conference in Ks. Another Hawkeye, Cade Obermueller, among the best nationally in terms of the fewest hits allowed. Connor Foley of Indiana holding opponents under a 140 batting average. And how about 47 strikeouts and 7 walks? Those are the numbers for Justin Sinibaldi of Rutgers. I want to get your take on a couple of these guys. Brecht is an interesting one for me, just in the nature of covering football as much as I do.
Yes.
I mean, he is a guy who has caught passes.
Right, the wide receiver
for Iowa
extraordinaire.
in regular season football games. I mean, this is a really talented kid, but he changed his focus solely to baseball, and you can understand.
Well, when you throw 100 miles an hour and you have multiple scouts from multiple organizations talking about you might be a top 10 pick, yeah, I think you can go to Hayden Fry or the folks in the football department and kind of say, you know what, I think I'm stepping away from football. I don't want a
You're
safety.
You're dating yourself. Kirk Ferentz.
Kirk Ferentz. I don't want a safety to take out the shoulder.
No, for sure.
So no offense. Going across the middle might be a little challenging at this point forward. So for Kirk, I'm sure he understood too. When you talk about throwing 100 miles an hour, and it's not just Brody Brecht. I mean, all three of these pitchers for Iowa are electric. This was a team that was preseason top 20. And again, talking to the pro scouts, both Brody, both Cade, and Marcus Morgan, that three, everyone was saying to me, is as good as any three in the nation. Now, it's been really shocking that Iowa has not been able to take a step and have these guys pitch the way they're capable of. But for Brody Brecht, again, a potential top 10, crazy that he is still averaging almost 2 strikeouts an inning. Problem is, he's almost one walk an inning and is averaging less than 5 innings an outing. So that's putting their team in a bad position.
It's interesting you bring up his control issues because you look at Obermueller's numbers and control seems like a huge concern for him. So what's the trade-off there? Give us a little insight into what he brings. Obviously, some of it very, very good.
Yeah.
But then some concerns with the walks and the hit batsman.
Again, he throws upper 90s, three-quarter arm slot, and he was one that people were saying to me, this could be a top 50 draft if he takes that next step. And I think for all the scouts and the people that I'm talking to, they're looking to see how the control is. They're looking to see if there's more consistency. And for some reason, again, not sure if it's weather, not sure if it's the travel schedule. Just like Brody, Cade just has not been able to be consistent. Now, plenty of moments. He's already been a Big Ten Pitcher of the Week. Plenty of moments that show the potential that's there. But it's just, I'm sure for these three, Marcus Morgan, unfortunately, right now, we have to bring him up briefly because he, of the qualified pitchers, has the worst ERA in the Big Ten. Could have been a D1 quarterback. So you have three pitchers. The reason Iowa was a top 20 with Cade, with Marcus, with Brody, that for some reason, all three of them are not getting into a 6th, 7th, 8th inning, and all three of them are having trouble finding the strike zone.
We'll see whether they can get on track here coming up second half of the season. And we'll get your take on some of the big series coming up this weekend. That's a little bit later in the show with Mike. Rick, thank you. More on tonight's matchup. It'll be the 20th time that the Wolverines have tangled with the Eagles. The series Michigan leads 12-7. First time they met in 10 years, though, and first time in the NCAA tourney in 20 years. They'll drop the first puck at 8:30 Eastern. For more on what to expect, let's go back out to Rick, Paul, and Fred.
Dave, thanks. Final chance for us to share some pregame thoughts before the puck drops on Thursday's national semifinal between Michigan and Boston College. Guys, we've talked a lot about the Wolverines over the course of the last couple of days. Let's dive into BC a little bit here because, Fred, you could certainly make the argument the Eagles have the best line in college hockey, and you add up their ages, they don't even amount to 55 years old between the three of them.
Well, last year when I followed Michigan, they had a line that was pretty good. Adam Fantilli, the Hobie Baker winner, between NHL first-rounder Rucker McGroarty of Winnipeg and NHL second-rounder Gavin Brindley of Columbus. Well, Michigan played an exhibition game against the NTDP last season, and the line of Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, and Gabe Perreault was the best line on the ice. And I came away from that game thinking, this might be the best line in college hockey. And they weren't even in college hockey. I mean, so when you add the fact that this BC team has 4 NHL first-rounders along with the second-rounders and a third-rounder in goal, this is a blue blood team for sure.
I mean, it's crazy to think about. You mentioned that line, and none of them are the leading scorer or up for the Hobie Baker finals. That's Cutter Gauthier, who got traded. He was in the news this year. The NHL wasn't happy with his Philadelphia pick, got moved to Anaheim, but the guy is phenomenal. 37 goals is ridiculous. And he's on their so-called second line. So that's how they don't rely on one line. I don't care how good that line is. Generally, you need more scoring, and they've got it with Cutter Gauthier and his line. So that's where I think, circling back to Michigan, the defensive depth, they don't have Seamus Casey has to be out against the top line or has to be out against Cutter Gauthier. I think with Marshall Warren and those other guys that have elevated has made them be able to use that depth to their advantage against a team that has more than one scoring line.
Sure, we like to categorize lines, first line, second line, third line. With the skill that these guys have, they may go out in a specific order, but all of these guys have top-line talent. There's no question about it. As for Michigan, with their group of high-end draft picks and the talent that they have, is there a star, a player, or a specific line that you feel like absolutely has to play its best to take care of business against BC?
Yeah, I mean, I love this guy. Dylan Duke has just been phenomenal. He's been patient. He's a third year. He's a fourth-round draft pick. But that's what I love about college hockey, right? You can get drafted, but then you can come back and continue to develop in college. And I think he's done that. He's grown and got better every year, and he scores big goals for him. Scored the big goal against Michigan State, scored the game-winning goal against Minnesota in last year's Big Ten championship game. I just love how he knows his role. He goes in front of the net when he needs to. On the power play, he gets all the dirty plays. He brings just a lot of energy, and he's a veteran. This is his third year around at this. You know he's going to want to get this one for Michigan in the third try.
Well, speaking of guys who will want to get it done, in their hometown, and that's two kids on Michigan who are from the land of 10,000 lakes, and Garrett Shifsky and Josh Ernestine. And Shifsky, all freshman team performer in the Big Ten this year, 16 goals, and he was kind of unheralded coming into camp, but he's emerged as the type of player that you put him on any line and he makes that line better. Hockey IQ off the charts, good shot, just so diligent defensively when he's playing center. So there's one. The other guy is the transfer from St. Thomas, Josh Ernest. He scored 14 goals in the CCHA last season. Transfers, doesn't have as many goals this season, but he's impactful because anytime the coaches think that they need a little more muscle on the line, who do they call on? Big number 6, the linebacker on skates, who never played football, by the way. Good. Boy, he can be a physical specimen. So those two guys, Ernestine and Shifsky, they're going to have all kinds of family and friends. More depth. And, let's be honest, this Michigan team is comfortable in this state. They've been here 3 times now in the last 6 weeks.
And the Wolverines a lot more comfortable as of late, Fred, in late game situations. You don't get to the Frozen Four. You don't get through a regional as deep as the one that they got through without being able to close things out in the third or come back from a deficit in the third. That was an issue early in the season for Michigan. It appears that they've solved it just in the nick of time. Yeah,
it was an issue right through January and end of February for sure. But what's happened? You look at the regional where they outscored North Dakota 3-1 in the third period. They're not hanging on anymore. Then they outscored Michigan State 4-1. They're not trying to hang on for victory. They're going at it. And a number of factors go into that, of course. Number one's goaltending. Jake Barczewski with his 38 saves against Michigan State after Michigan State had beaten them the week before in the Big Ten championship game. And the defense. Michigan has a theory and a sign in the room. The puck is gold. So when we have it, we want to take it to the other end and make things happen. If we don't have the puck, we got to get it back. And the defense, we've talked about the defense before, and Ethan Edwards and what his maturity has brought. And it's lessened the workload on Marshall Warren and Seamus Casey. So those late game situations, they're a lot fresher. They still got a little more jam in them.
Yeah, let's not forget about Marshall Warren, the guy that spent 4 years at Boston College. You don't see this often, but he comes in, he transfers in, and he's given an A. So he's brought the leadership that they needed. Jacob Truscott, another leader in the back end, but I think he's brought a different. It took him a little time, I think, to learn the Michigan way. Because you watch all this offense and you're like, okay, how aggressive should I be? Do I keep coming? But I think they've found like this perfect mix of, okay, we're going to bust, we're going to go for it, but also we are going to get pucks out. We're not going to turn it over because BC is just waiting for you to turn the puck over and go in and transition. So I think that having him, and I think he's going to have a little extra juice tonight. So just fun stuff to watch. I can't wait till the games get going.
Third straight Frozen Four for Michigan. Of course, the last 2 have ended with losses at this stage in the national semifinal.
Third time's a charm?
What a spot against the top overall seed it would be for Michigan to end that trend and get back to the national championship game. Puck scheduled to drop right around 7:30 local time, 8:30 Eastern. Of course, we will have complete post-game coverage after Michigan and BC are all done. For Fred Pletch and Paul Caponigri, I'm Rick Pizzo from St. Paul as we send it back to our Chicago studios.
Back on Big Ten today and Saturday, spring football is here. Noon Eastern, you can see the Boilermakers in action at Ross-Ade. Then at 2, the Nittany Lions taking the field for their blue-white game. It's all Saturday, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Purdue coach Ryan Walters joins me now. It is today's big interview, sneak preview of what we'll see from Purdue. Coach, first of all, format-wise, I know different schools have different ways of approaching this. What should Purdue fans expect on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the goal is to remain healthy, right? And so, we're trying to give the fans sort of what they want, get the experience and the things we need from a football standpoint done, but also want to remain healthy. And so, the one offense and the 2 defense will be on the same team. The 2 offense and the 1 defense will be on the same team. So that way the 1s are playing against the 1s, the 2s are playing against the 2s on offense and defense. When the 1s are out there, it'll be, everybody's in full pads, it's full speed. But when it comes to the ball carrier, We call it punch tempo. It's basically where you're, palms down, tagging on the hip to signify that the ball carrier is down. But when the twos are out there, they'll mix it up and we'll go live. It'll be 4 quarters. We'll keep score. If there's a 3rd-and-1 scenario or a goal to goal from the 1 yard line, that'll be an automatic first down or automatic touchdown. So we don't create any, downhill collisions from that standpoint. If there's a punt scenario, we'll take like the NCAA average a punt and just flip the field. And if somebody scores, we'll just flip the field and start from the -25.
Let's start. Sounds great. Sounds like we're going to see some actual football, which should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
You've been practicing, obviously, for weeks now, so you have a pretty good sense of your team. But still, it's different when you get into scrimmage situations. What are you most interested in seeing on Saturday?
Yeah, I want to see clean communication, see the fundamentals and the techniques that we've been teaching carry over to live situations. I just think it is going to be good to get some guys some experience playing in Ross-Ade in front of a crowd that either didn't play a whole lot last year or that we added, new at the spring semester. We had 27 new incomers in January. And so to get those guys just a feel for what it's like in Ross-Ade and sort of, mimic or fabricate some game-like scenarios and game-like situations, I think will be good for us.
You mentioned the newcomers. Obviously, some of those are early enrollees, but you also went really heavy into the portal, which I think is to be expected, certainly in this day and age. Everyone's going heavy into the portal, but also you're going into your second year. You're figuring out what you need in your program. There's been a lot of buzz about some of the portal additions. I want you to tell me about Nyland Green, because it feels like he's the guy maybe who's created the most buzz.
Yeah, Nyland, look at you look at a guy who's long, he's athletic, he's got great hips to be that tall. He's fast, he's physical, he's got high football IQ. You see sort of why he was the number 2 corner coming out his high school recruiting class. But the thing I think I've been the most impressed with him specifically is just the way he's came in, put his head down and gone to work. He's a no ego guy. He's one of the locker room favorites. And I'm happy as heck that he's here.
As you look back on year one, Coach, I know you're not happy with the record at 4-8, but what are you proudest of in terms of what you accomplished?
I think the thing I'm most proud of is just, if you look at today and you rewind back to a year ago where we are today, just the growth within the program. We obviously 4-8, nobody wants to go through that. But you look at all the departments around the football team, academics, recruiting, strength and conditioning, the training room, the nutrition, like all those things have improved. Our collective has improved. And because our collective has improved, our locker room has improved. And so, I'm just proud of the continuity that we've had from a roster and a staff standpoint, the way they've worked throughout the course of this year. And where we are in comparison to where we were a year ago, on April 11th. So that's what I'm proud of most.
Coach, it's interesting. I think back to our campus visit with you last year, and we always have preconceptions when a new coach takes over. And I know when Jerry and Howard and I were there, we were talking about, well, you've got this air raid offense that you've installed. They're going to chuck it all over the place. Hudson Card had an unbelievable day, the day that we were there. And yet you look back at the end of the year and you guys ended up leading the Big Ten in rushing yards per game in conference play. So maybe a little bit different than we expected. How did the offense in year one compare with what you expected?
If you're in the building every day, like you see the adversities and the challenges that we had to face. We were beat up front all year. Hudson was banged up from week 4 to the end of the season. Lost some of our starting wide receivers, lost our starting tight end. So they faced a lot of challenges. So they had to, what I was proud of with them is they had to adapt and adjust to what our roster could handle and what they could do. And so you look up and like you said, you got an air raid offensive coordinator and he has back-to-back 300-yard rushing games on offense. That speaks to our ability to be creative and be innovative and find ways to move the ball. And so I think that is only going to be beneficial for us moving forward. because he still knows how to dial up some concepts in the pass game. He's still got a quarterback that can throw it, and we got a bunch of wideouts that can stretch the field and have really good hands. And so I'm excited for that side of the ball come this season.
Tell me a little bit about what's up with Hudson. As you mentioned, he was injured much of last year, actually ended up sitting out one of your games down the stretch. Where is he in terms of his health and the progress that he's made?
Yeah, obviously he's healthy. You know, he played last year at about 190 pounds. I think he's hovering right around 210 right now. So really is taking care of his body from a nutrition standpoint, and Kiero Small and his strength staff have done a great job with him in gaining the right type of weight. I think the thing that I've seen most growth with him is just his leadership, his command of the locker room, command of the huddle, and being comfortable in his environment. And that's to be expected. You know, last year was his first year as a full-time starter, so he had to go through some growing pains, had gained some experience. But now he's comfortable, he's confident, and I'm glad he's our quarterback.
Your forte, obviously, as an assistant coach, was defense. You came over from Illinois. You had the best defense in the country, arguably, the year before. Where do you think your Purdue defense is going to make the biggest strides from year one to year two?
Yeah, you know, you look at last year, it was feast or famine, right? Our havoc plays were high in terms of sacks and TFLs, but we gave up more explosive plays than I've given up in my career. And that led to a lot of points. And so, you know, we've gotten deeper at positions that we needed to get deeper. I feel like we've got guys on the roster that fit the scheme, and just have a better understanding of what we're trying to get accomplished from a schematic standpoint. You know, you look at year one to year two as the defense coordinator at Illinois, our defense got a lot better in that year, and I anticipate that trend continue here at Purdue this season.
I saw that you moved Cajun Jenkins to middle linebacker. Tell me a little bit about the logic behind that move and what it's done for your defense.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, KJ, I wanted to do what was best for him individually. You look at the position he played a year ago, obviously was ultra productive. You know, I think he had 8 sacks, he had a bunch of TFLs, and was an all-conference type player because of it. But, you know, KJ is 6 foot and 250 pounds. And so you look at the next level, he becomes a small rush end. And for us to keep him, you know, if I'm his dad, I'm saying, you know, KJ, if you're playing rush end, you probably should declare for the NFL, because the things that they're going to question are your height and your weight, and those things aren't changing. Like you're as productive as you're going to be. But if we can take him from the edge and move him inside, you know, now he's not small. He's actually a big guy. You know, 6 foot 250 Mike linebacker. That's a load, and he can move and he's versatile. And so, you know, the ability to have him play off the ball, and then, you know, we get in the third downs or passing situations to still go rush the passer. I think his versatility will add value in terms of the next level.
Coach, before we let you go, I want to ask you a little bit about the success the basketball team had. It's obviously been an incredible last few weeks here for Purdue. What does that success mean for the football program and for the athletic department as a whole?
You know, it's huge. You know, to watch those guys go to work the way they did, watch the community support the program the way it did, and just the excitement, the continuity, and really the inspiration from that season. It shows you what this place is capable of from an athletic standpoint. And so I think a lot of times you have to see things to know what is possible, especially when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. And so for them to be able to see in a sports team from Purdue University go on and play in a national championship, it shows you what this place is capable of when you believe it and when you go about things the right way. And so that has set the standard of what is possible and what is capable of at Purdue.
Who is the Purdue basketball player you'd be most intrigued by as a football player?
There's a couple, man. You know, obviously Zach Edey would make a great tight end or left tackle or rush end. You know, somebody that's that big and that athletic. You know, Mason Gillis, I think, would make a heck of a, you know, either a tight end or wide out. so those two guys. But like Miles Colvin is athletic and can jump out the gym, so I'm sure he could be able to go catch a couple jump balls. Same with Cam Heide.
I would like to see Zach at left tackle. I think we need to figure out a way to make that happen. That is.
I think he's doing just fine where he's at. He's doing just fine.
Yeah, you have a good point there. It's worked out fairly well for him, this whole basketball thing. Ryan Walters, really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing the Boilers on the field here in a couple of days. And best of luck, obviously, going forward. We'll see you down the road.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. You guys take care.
Baseball this weekend in the Big Ten. Here's the schedule for Friday. We do have a game on the Big Ten Network, Minnesota, Michigan. Everything else is streaming on Big Ten Plus, Maryland, Northwestern, Penn State, Indiana, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue, Nebraska, Rutgers, and a non-conference battle between the Illini and NIU. Michael Huff is back with me. Got a couple minutes left to dive into some of these series. Let's start with the first place Huskers trying to bounce back from their first conference loss. They now head to Rutgers, which we watch there.
Well, this is very exciting for me. I think about Rutgers. Both of these teams were preseason ranked, but now Rutgers is 1-5, which is kind of mind-boggling. This is a club that's first in batting average, third in ERA, first in pitching. They have over 20 wins, but 1-5 in conference. Now they get to come home for Nebraska. Here's a chance to prove we do belong on that national stage. Here's a chance to kind of solidify that national ranking. And it's not just going to be Brett Sears. I think Drew Christo on the mound is going to be really important. If he can be that second starter, they can take the series. They really solidify themselves.
What's going on with Rutgers, in your opinion? Why have they dropped off here in conference play?
I think a few things have just tightened up for them. I think we all know in any sport, you have to be relaxed and loose. And here's a team that has such high expectations that the guys, I think, are putting too much pressure on themselves. And they have so many great players. Again, Josh Kuroda-Grauer was the MVP of the Cape, leading the Big Ten in hitting. Tony Santa Maria has come back from his injury last year and is crushing the ball. So this is a club that has all of the ingredients. I just feel like they're pressuring a little bit.
Well, we'll see whether they can get back on track, as you mentioned, at home against a Nebraska team that's won 7 straight weekend series. A couple middle-of-the-pack teams. We talked a bit about Iowa and the pitching staff having a ton of promise and trying to live up to it. Now they're taking on Ohio State. Couple middle-of-the-pack teams here. What do you make of this one?
Well, Ohio State has a 47 RPI right now, which is a little bit surprising because they're a 500 ball club, but they're sitting in a good position in the tournament right now and a chance to build on some momentum. Again, Bill Masiello's second year out of TCU is doing nice things at Ohio State, but Iowa, I just want to see those pitchers come back and pitch what they can do. Their hitters are actually second in the Big Ten, where I thought there may be some fall off with their offensive production. The offensive production has been just fine. It's just been disappointing for their arms, both starters and bullpen. So Iowa, can they get back into that groove, showing everybody across the country that they are a team that should be ranked nationally? They have to go to Ohio State, who's playing pretty good baseball right now.
Buckeyes have won 3 in a row. They, of course, knocked off Nebraska, handed them their first conference loss last week. Real quick, give me a thought on Penn State, Indiana.
Well, Indiana, again, I thought was a team that had the best lineup 1 through 9 hitting-wise. Again, not playing to that potential. So they have a chance at home to really step up and put themselves back on a national scale, but also solidify their place in the Big Ten.
Weather's starting to warm up. We'll see if the
that always helps. That always helps.
Well, yes, you certainly can speak to that. Michael Huff, great stuff. Thanks so much for joining us on Big Ten Today. We will see you next time. I'm Dave Revson. Take care.